about not being quiet about how you feel, which is good advice if I don't say so myself. I try to let you get in just to see a tiny piece of my mind, and you've barely scratched the surface, but you're running on a clock that's running out of time. The darkest of intentions, and these quiet interventions shut me down. So I'll stay here in the shadows, unafraid to unmask the things that might cause you to drown. I'm never gonna be quiet. You seem to only want a well-paid silence. That's fine, but I know you're working from a clock until you pulled the gun and cocked it. Now my only option is they stop, dropping, roll. I can just throw up, but you're constantly saying I'll go up. Now hold up, I'm done telling you my story, but tell the next one and I said hello.
There's a late 19th century French novelist named Léon Blois who wrote a book called A Woman Who Was Poor. And one of the statements he made in that book was, or one of the statements he is quoted as having made in his life is that there's only one sorrow, the sorrow of not being a saint. Now, the context in which he said that didn't have anything to do with people with halos or people who were so holy that they're not somebody we could attempt to strive to be like in our lives. What the context of that statement was is the sorrow is that people miss the mark, that they're not whole. Holiness is wholeness, that you don't become the person you were meant to be. That you go through your life, you're born, you go through your life, and you die, and you never become the person that you were meant to be. That of all the people who have ever lived, you're the only one like you. The poet says, what I do is me, for that I came. That I came. I came into this world to be me. And so the question is, who am I? And as we look at the range of disorders and the compulsivity, that's what I like to focus on, that out of that shame base, another way to look at the crisis is to say that we're in a crisis of compulsivity. And that compulsivity itself is set up in family systems. That the initiation into compulsivity always takes place in families, and the way it takes place is out of some form of abuse, which in its initial sort of initiation was salvific. That is, I'm a workaholic because I can't deal with my feelings. I don't have any feelings of tenderness or feelings of dealing with my children, so I'd rather stay at work and be into the impersonal excitement of making money as opposed to the threatening intimacy of home and the getting close and the expressing feelings. But what happened to a person like that? Very early on, they got cut off from their feelings. Very early on, they got abused in some way so that they were not allowed to be who they were. If you look at this little chart over here, that if you think of this bottom block as you or me at birth, this is what we look like at birth. There's a private self and a public self. That is, there's a part that I experience of me under my skin, then there's a part of me that you experience. Or another way to say this is that this is the conforming self, the public self, and this is the actualizing self. This is the part of me that is individualized, this private self, and this is the part of me that conforms for socialization, if you will, or to survive. Now, by puberty, if you come out of what I'm going to consider normal kind of sexual scripting, see, which is already abusive. If you just come out of normalcy in our culture, although we're making changes and we're trying to become conscious of this, But you see, a little girl is born, here's her private self, suddenly she laughs too loud and somebody says, don't act like that. You stop gurgling when you laugh, that's not ladylike. So this private self goes in and this public self gets bigger as she pretends not to gurgle when she laughs in order to please mother or please daddy or please whoever. So constantly she's sacrificing her real self to this public self. She has to give up who she is to fit the script that the culture decided on as what makes a real woman. And it may not be like her at all. It may be an act that she has to play in order to adapt to survive. Okay? By puberty, look at how big the public self is as opposed to the private self. And let's say by midlife, that private self is just a tiny little part of you. That most of you or most of us or whoever it is an act, is a performance. Or as somebody said, by this point you've become a human doing and not a human being. That your whole life is a performance and an act. It's an achievement. See, very early on you go to school and you get grades and you achieve. And they measure you and they judge you. And if you don't meet the measurement or the judgment, that private self, which may be very different, which may be, you may hear a different drummer. There's never been another you. Who are we going to measure you by? See, what I want you to get right now, there's no such thing as normal. Because if somebody's normal, they're the norm. We got to compare everybody to them. If you step forward and say, I am a normal person, then every one of us have to be compared to you. That you are the measure and the standard by which all of us are measured. What I'd rather say is we miss the mark. The sorrow of not being a saint is that you're not functional. Is that by the time you get here, you're pretending like you're not angry when you're angry because that's dirty or that's not ladylike. Or you're pretending not to be sad when you're sad because that's not manly. And so part of you is frozen and split off and gone. Part of you is no longer functional. Your feelings. Or maybe way back here you were so you had such an authoritarian family struggle you were never allowed to think a thought. If you said something, somebody would say that's stupid or that's crazy or where did you get a crazy idea like that? So what you learned to do was to adapt. You pretended like you didn't have any idea.
But more than anything else, I know that if I make a friend, they like me for who I am, not a persona I maintain to keep up appearances. I'm not projecting the image society demands of me. I'm just my raw, honest, autistic self. So I can't disappoint them by letting my guard down. Being autistic in the modern world is hard. We have to deal with prejudices and misconceptions unique to us. Society puts us at a disadvantage because we can't be corralled into set, acceptable ways of thinking and behaviour. We're too full of surprises. If we could be easily predicted or controlled, then we wouldn't be seen as deficient or our behaviour questioned. We'd be model citizens. Neurotypical life may not present the same barriers as autistic life, but it has barriers of its own. Non-autists have concerns and neuroses that most autistic people aren't even bothered by. And the biggest of those is maintaining the image of being happy and just the right amount of dissatisfied with life that you're seen to be aspirational, but not so ambitious that those you hope to impress feel threatened. Most neurotypical people aren't ready to be unplugged. But if you're autistic, you've never been fully plugged in. If you think being neurotypical is something to aspire to or to envy, you've been conned.
And so we're always rushing to do and achieve and go. And Pete talks about we rush in thoughts like obsessions. We can be very obsessive thinkers. And we also compulsively engage in actions that help us deal with these feelings. And so we're thinking and doing really to the extreme. And it's this relentless flee, he says, trying to sort of flee the inner pain of abandonment. And that is really symbolized by this idea of busyness, right? We see a lot of workaholism, of doing.
GABA is a neurochemical made by your body that helps you to feel calm, relaxed, and focused. It's involved with calming down nerve signals, helping you to stay energetic whilst preventing strong emotions like anxiety, fear, or stress. Unfortunately, many people have low levels of GABA, and this can cause you to feel irritated, anxious, and restless. Without enough GABA, the nervous system can become overstimulated, causing muscle spasms or twitches, and this can also affect the heart muscle, causing high blood pressure. People with low GABA levels also often struggle to sleep soundly at night. You may feel weak and lethargic during the day and tend to get burnt out emotionally or physically more easily. And you may struggle to unwind and turn off the overactive thoughts because your cortisol is high and your GABA is low. Fortunately, there are some very simple and natural ways that you can boost your GABA levels to overcome these problems, to manage your stress levels. Whenever you're feeling stressed or anxious, your brain releases more glutamate, which activates the fight or flight response in your body. This causes your adrenal glands to release too much cortisol, the stress hormone that causes your muscles to tighten, your digestive system to stop working properly, and it also makes you less resistant to infections from viruses. So, in order to inhibit this glutamate and calm down your stress response, start actively reducing your stress triggers in life and spend more time winding down.
When I go, don't cry for me. In my Father's arms I'll be. The wounds this world left on my soul will all be healed and I'll be whole. When I go, don't cry for me. In my Father's arms I'll be. The wounds this world left on my soul will all be healed and I'll be whole. Sun and moon will be replaced with the light of Jesus' face, and I will not be ashamed, for my Savior knows my name. It don't matter where you bury me, I'll be home and I'll be free. It don't matter anywhere I lay, all my tears be washed away.